Welcome to Africa Geotrends, your window into Africa's power, progress, and geopolitics. Asterisk before we dive in, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the stories shaping Africa's future. At dawn over the Namib Desert, wind towers cut through the glowing horizon. The air hums, not from engines, but from turbines spinning silently above endless sand. Below, mirrored panels stretch across the dunes, reflecting the light of a continent rising. In a nearby control room, a young Namibian engineer watches a screen where the words hydrogen output, stable flash green. In that instant, a story that began with Africa's long struggle for energy independence turns into something greater, the birth of a global power shift. For decades, energy was a word owned by others: oil fields in the Middle East, pipelines in Russia, gas terminals in Texas. But today, something new is happening. The world's next fuel, the cleanest, most powerful of them all, is being born not in Europe, not in America, but here, in Africa. From the coastlines of Mauritania to the heart of Kenya, from Egypt's deserts to Namibia's iron plains, Africa is quietly building the foundation of the next industrial revolution: green hydrogen. It's invisible, weightless, and yet it could power airplanes, factories, and entire nations. But what's more shocking is who's racing to control it. China, the United States, and the European Union are all converging on the same goal: to secure Africa's place in the world's clean energy future. To some, this is a miracle. To others, it's a silent power struggle. But to Africa, it may be the long-awaited turning point, the chance to become not a consumer, but a producer, not a frontier, but a force. For years, global energy debates focused on oil pipelines, carbon emissions, and climate diplomacy. Yet behind closed doors, engineers, financiers, and political strategists have already redrawn the map. It's called the Green Hydrogen Corridor, a transcontinental chain of clean energy megaprojects that could make Africa energy independent within a generation. The numbers are staggering. By 2030, more than 41 major hydrogen plants are expected to rise across the continent. Southern Africa alone captured 81.5% of the continent's $40 billion hydrogen funding in early 2025, with Namibia leading the charge. Egypt has signed $40 billion worth of MOUs to become a regional hydrogen hub. Algeria and Morocco are positioning themselves as Europe's clean energy gateway. Meanwhile, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa are racing to build their own hydrogen economies. The scale is historic, but the strategy behind it is even more intriguing. The European Union's Global Gateway Initiative pledges €300 billion to reshape energy infrastructure, linking North Africa to Europe through pipelines like the Southern Hydrogen Corridor, stretching over 3,000 kilometers from Algeria to Germany. The U.S. is crafting its own partnerships, promoting de-risked African clean energy investments to counter China's Belt and Road dominance. And China? It's quietly supplying the backbone, electrolyzers, turbines, transmission lines, and the manpower to build them all. This is not just a race for green energy, it's a race for influence. Whoever owns Africa's hydrogen will control the world's clean energy future. But amid the geopolitics, something far more human is happening. In Namibia's Erongo region, engineers at High Iron have built Africa's first zero-emissions iron plant, powered entirely by green hydrogen. The project produces 1 million tons of carbon-free iron each year and supports thousands of jobs. Our grandparents dug for gold, says Juma Mbwana, one of the engineers. We're mining the wind. Across the continent in Egypt's Red Sea corridor, solar farms feed hydrogen electrolyzers the size of aircraft hangars. Each plant produces enough fuel to power a city the size of Alexandria. It's quiet work, no smoke, no oil rigs, just light transformed into energy. Meanwhile, Morocco's desert fields glitter with wind turbines and solar panels feeding massive hydrogen facilities built for export to Europe. In Kenya, young engineers are training under the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance, AGHA, designing modular plants that can fit in shipping containers, miniature hydrogen stations for remote communities. In Mauritania, where sand once swallowed whole villages, the Amman project promises to generate more than 1.7 million tons of hydrogen annually, one of the largest projects of its kind. Each project tells the same story: a continent reclaiming its energy destiny. For generations, Africa exported raw resources, gold, oil, diamonds, while importing finished technology. But hydrogen flips that equation. It requires advanced engineering, high-tech infrastructure, and long-term global partnerships. The future wealth of nations won't come from what they dig out of the ground, but from what they can create from sun and wind. Still, the transformation is not without risks. Analysts warn that Africa could fall into a new form of dependency, green colonialism, where rich nations finance hydrogen projects only to re-import the energy. A recent study from the Technical University of Munich found that green hydrogen from Africa could be more expensive than expected due to high infrastructure costs and limited local ownership. Activists across Tunisia and Algeria have protested plans for the Southern Hydrogen Corridor, fearing land displacement and unequal benefit sharing. The challenge, then, is not only to produce hydrogen, but to ensure that Africa controls its own production and profits. Yet optimism remains strong. In April 2025, Southern Africa's funding share soared to $33 billion, showing global confidence in the continent's potential. China's state companies have signed technology transfer deals with Kenya and South Africa. The EU has injected direct grants into hydrogen training centers. The United States has started supporting hybrid projects that combine hydrogen with storage and carbon capture. For Africa's youth, this is more than energy. It's employment, innovation, and a redefinition of identity. Imagine a future where ships sailing from African ports run entirely on hydrogen fuel, where African-made steel and fertilizer are stamped, powered by green energy, where the continent exports not just minerals, but clean fuel to Europe and Asia. The numbers already point that way, but perhaps the most profound impact will not be economic. It will be geopolitical. For over a century, Africa's energy narrative was shaped by outsiders, from European oil majors to American NGOs to Chinese infrastructure giants. Hydrogen offers a rare chance to reverse that story. The nations that master this technology will not just light their cities, they'll rewrite their power dynamics. Already, global investors view Africa not as a charity case, but as a frontier of opportunity. Hydrogen is uniting regions long divided by politics, building networks of scientists, financiers, and engineers who share a single goal: energy sovereignty. In Kenya, researchers are designing hydrogen-based fertilizer plants to cut import costs. In Nigeria, engineers are exploring hydrogen storage for industrial zones. In South Africa, clean steel production could revolutionize the mining sector. And across North Africa, new export routes through the Mediterranean are transforming geopolitics, connecting Africa to Europe through clean energy corridors instead of colonial trade routes. Still, questions linger. Who benefits when Europe buys Africa's hydrogen? Will the technology remain accessible, or will patents and pricing recreate dependency? Can African universities produce enough engineers to sustain this boom? And as the world turns to hydrogen, will Africa finally profit from its natural abundance, or lose it to a new generation of global powers? Amid these uncertainties, one thing is clear: Africa's green hydrogen corridor is real. It's being funded, built, and scaled faster than any clean energy revolution before it. The infrastructure, pipelines, electrolyzers, ports, is rising from Cairo to Cape Town. The investors, European banks, Chinese tech giants, American funds, are already staking their claims. What remains is how Africa itself will define this moment. If it succeeds, the payoff is monumental. The continent could generate trillions in new energy exports, provide electricity to hundreds of millions, and avoid billions of tons of CO2 emissions. The transition could turn Africa from a climate victim into a climate leader, home to the cleanest, cheapest energy on the planet. For the first time in history, Africa would not be following the energy revolution. It would be leading it. And that's the truth at the heart of this story. The world's clean energy future is not being written in Silicon Valley or Brussels. It's being written in dusty workshops in Nairobi, in wind farms outside Walvis Bay, and in solar corridors stretching through the Sahara. Every turbine, every panel, every electrolyzer represents a choice, a declaration that Africa will not wait for the world to save it. It will power itself. The green hydrogen corridor isn't just a network of projects. It's a symbol of a new era, one where Africa's greatest export is no longer its raw resources, but its ideas, its energy, and its innovation. And as China, the United States, and Europe compete to invest, the rest of the world is beginning to realize something profound. The global balance of power is shifting toward the continent that has been underestimated for centuries. Africa's energy future no longer depends on oil rigs or colonial infrastructure. It depends on the wind that never stops blowing, the sun that never stops shining, and the ambition that never stops rising. The hydrogen corridor is the first blueprint of a self-sufficient, industrial Africa. The only question left is, will the world see it as an opportunity or as a warning that the age of African dependence is over? You've been watching Africa Geo Trends, where Africa's moves shape the world. That if you haven't already, subscribe now and stay ahead of the next big story.